My name is Ebony Swinton, and this PowerPoint presentation is for my fall semester's Women History class at Clayton State University. In this presentation, I will expand on how specific events in World War II helped influence many roles and contributions for Black women during a time when women faced segregation and discrimination. Okay, so my research topic is Rosie the Riveter, the contributions of Black women and the segregation of American women in 1941 through 1945, and how these actions, help shape and expand the new roles of women in World War II. During my research, I found omissions of the information from the textbook through women's eyes. I also discovered the textbook had missing information and perspectives that I uncovered more with my additional sources. Particularly, the textbook missed a lot of key Black women. It only really mentions, names like Angela Davis, right? It left out the truth about how other women like Alice Dunbar Nelson, Elaine Brown, Kathleen Cleaver, Mabel Staupers, and Frances Beale also helped, significantly in shaping new women roles. So my additional research from the other sources help explore a lot deeper in the new contributions and opportunities women helped to create in the military and civilian world. I discovered in more detail, from other sources how segregated women were in the workplace, the different experiences that Black women suffered in the workplace, the different women propaganda, right? The Double V campaign and the Women's Army Corporation known as WAC or WAC, right? So why this topic matters in women history. World War II, played a significant role for American women, helping to create new gender roles for women, new workforce opportunities in factories and even nursing, in the military and politics and in administrative roles. So the Rosie Riveter campaign and the recruitment of women working in the war, while they still had, the responsibility of taking care of their family duties at home, is very important. It's an important part of history for all women, right? Black women were undervalued and worked in harsher conditions than white women, but they still fought, right? Black people still fought to contribute while undergoing these different segregations and exclusions, more than what the white people, experienced. All right, now the textbook Through the Women's Eyes did have 3 authors. They're listed right there, right? In the textbook, it briefly describes how women roles were expanded in World War II, but it doesn't fully disclose all the Black women that helped, contribute to the new roles or even go in depth with the harsh segregation experienced by Black women during this era. So the textbook, briefly touches on the WAC participation and the Double V campaign. Um, you know, World War II helped create new roles in society and the military, and I kind of mentioned that earlier, right? Some of the main things mentioned in the textbook was also the Rosie Riveter campaign shift, right? And so, the textbook was a source that did help me expand on regular traditional gender roles and how they were expanded from things like being, sex workers for females to more responsibility in the military during the World War II. And the symbolization in the posters for the campaign, Rosie the Riveter, right? So this source that I used here, from the textbook was written in 2016. So it does help explain the struggles that minority women endured and the successes they had in World War II while emphasizing traditional women roles in the war. All right, so slide 4, right? The primary source that was used was by Alice Dunbar Nelson, who was the author of Negro Women in War Work. Now, this text was not an interpretation of the events that happened during the 20th century. Instead, it was an experience that Alice experienced, firsthand accounts of the hard work Black women had to put in back then, while also, working in factories or the nursing, or unloading freight or digging ditches and many more, different workforce things that they had to do. Blacks experienced discrimination when it came to those type of jobs, and even being recognized as a certified nurse, although they had credentials, right? So Black women still fought and signed up for the work during the World War, even though they were not recognized. So, this source just describes how Black women were undervalued, did not receive recognition, right? How Black women experience the harsher conditions just because of their color, right? It describes how Black women's contributions were overlooked. Now this primary source was used as a direct source for how Black women were undervalued despite their contributions and willingness to be all that they could be, even though they were undergoing that type of discrimination. Okay, now on this next slide here is my tertiary source, which is the Rosie Riveter poster. This famous poster was titled, "We Can Do It," as you see right there, which was iconic, right? And it celebrated how we needed women to fill in that labor force gap that was there, right? So, in this campaign, which has a credible author, Jen Gardner, it explores the iconic images in the propaganda and the media that helped broadcast strengthen independence for women while building the foundation for broader, gender equality roles. So this is one of the iconic images, some of that propaganda that was displayed back then, and also the picture that was broadcasted on media, right? Um, so there were, broader inequality roles and women independence that happened at this time. And due to that labor force gap, there were a lot of non-traditional jobs that were created for women. So, this source is the interpretation of the events, providing background. It was not created during the World War II. It does reference material back in World War II times with things such as this poster, right? So this source, it is a part of the Salem Press Encyclopedia that summarizes the facts back in the World War II era, and helps you gain context and reference in the United States with the direct quotes that you see here, right? Our quote, which is, "We can do it." All right, so this next slide is going to be my peer review source by Jessica. Now, this article explains the impact the walk provided while including both perspectives of how women's roles were viewed as enlisted in the military, right? So the author helped show how marketing started by women. It helped shape the market in different ways. It provided a certain type of perception to society. Media efforts and advertisement influenced women participation in the war, such as that picture there, right? Which in return did help redefine, women gender roles and norms back then. So the Women's Army Corps, known as WAC, were advertised through magazines and other media outlets, and different unique photos. This new advertisement explained, opened a new channel for advertisement, um, public relations, equality, and much more in the late 1960s. Women had more administrative support in nursing roles, with the nurse corps promoting feminism with glamorous settings for romance. All right, now for my last source here, which is going to be a secondary scholar source, it's going to be by Darlene Clark, right, as well as two other authors for the title Black Women in White. So the writers explain, or they expand on how Black women created their own institutions in the journey before World War II for Black women fighting for equality. The war helped a lot with creating new opportunities for Black women, but they were not equal opportunities compared to men and white women opportunities that were given, right? So, you learn more about Mabel Stoppers, right? Who was actually a major influence to Black women to be a part of the American Nurses Association after a long struggle of segregation. These struggles were recognized and integrated, right? So in section 8 of the article, Black Women in White, it was labeled "We Shall Not Be Left" in the World War II and integration of nursing. This goes into depth on how women advanced and became a part of nursing councils and health, subcommittees, despite the racial and gender scrutiny that they were undergoing. So this secondary source or scholar source will be used, or was used, right, to illustrate the challenges Black women faced during World War II. This source was written by someone to help support the events using the information from the primary sources. All right, and we have now reached the end. That is the end of my PowerPoint and my research topic, right?